Okay, so Kaizer Chiefs took on Young Africans in the Toyota Cup this past weekend. The game ended in a 4-0 win for Younger, and maybe there's some things that Chiefs can learn. Now, I'm going to look at the good and the bad things of what we saw this weekend and give you some of my key takeaways from what I saw. Let's start off with the bad.
Number 5.
I have this dream. And I'm sure a lot of Kaizer Chiefs fans have the same dream. You wake up one morning and you find out that the squad has been overhauled. They've brought in 7 or 8 new players, quality players. We see fresh faces within that squad, and that is the team we take forward. There's a new team feel. So I was a little bit disappointed when I saw the same players coming out. Now, I'm not one of those people that is going to look at this and say, hey, they're not of quality and all of that stuff. I don't believe we have that bad of a squad. But I do think that it becomes very tough to change a culture of a team. And once you have players that have been in a specific situation for years and years and years and not being able to change that, sometimes they become part of the problem and the problem becomes part of them. So take for example like Keegan Dolly, a winner. We've seen Keegan Dolly win all over the place. He's won at Mamelodi Sundowns, he went overseas, he's now come back. And through the years at Kaizer Chiefs, he started becoming the thing that we were bringing him in to change. And sometimes these players need a change of environment. Sometimes you need fresh voices in a change room. Sometimes you need to take away some of the guys that have been part of a losing culture. Let's be honest, it's been a losing culture. And you need to take those guys and maybe take them out of the team and bring in new blood. So when you see the same players come onto the pitch and pretty much act the same and move the same, you start asking questions about our recruitment, and maybe it's time to refresh that team. It goes into my next point.
Number 4.
It was the same play. It was the same formations. It was the same players making the same mistakes, put into the same roles. If you take, for example, Ranga Chivavairo having to drop back, we all know he's not good at it. We have a season's worth of footage telling us that Ranga Chivavairo is not that player. We've seen Ashley Dupree's on the wing. We have a season of knowledge of games where we've seen him play on the wing and not be effective and not use what he's good at. We've seen Mart playing in a CDM type of role how many years now? So I think I was expecting a little bit from this game to see something different. Maybe to lose the game, sure, the result wasn't necessarily my problem. But to lose the game knowing that I'm doing something new. Knowing that these players are struggling with a formation change. These players are struggling with them being put into new positions, being asked new questions. In fact, maybe watching these players go into positions where finally we have a coach that is going to put them in the right places, that's going to give them, that boost. They're going to be able to play properly. So I think I was a little bit disappointed to see the same things that we've been complaining about happening the whole time. And that brings me on to the next point.
Number 3.
So I've now spoken about how some of these players have been at the club for a very long time. Some of these players are even captains. Some of these players are looked at as leaders in the dressing room. Some of these guys have loud voices within Kaizer Chiefs. But there's no chemistry. How can you guys be playing with each other so long, but yet when we watch the game, we don't see combinations. We don't see players who are now accommodating each other's weaknesses. For example, like when you're looking at a game, I don't necessarily care about the formations, let's say. Yes, I did mention them previously, but let's say the formation is wrong. Let's say I'm playing in the wrong position. Let's say the coach doesn't understand me and I'm on the pitch. At this point, I would expect a Mart and a Frostler to have a relationship. I would them Dushabalala to be able to work with Ashley Dupree's, for example. I'd expect the centre-back pairing, even though they had one season last year, I'd expect them to understand each other's tendencies. I'd expect across the board for the players to have a little bit of a relationship with each other. And it's a little bit frustrating when you watch the players who have played together, some of them for years, who've been together for at the very least a season, and they don't have a working relationship. They don't have an understanding. Or low tandipola magilpega when I put it low. This one can't trap a high ball. This one likes to make these type of runs. This guy likes to do this. You could see that they don't have those type of things. And another team, you'd be able to at the very least understand that, nomfundo. There's times where they come together and they connect well. Usamgelo, nalo, there comes a time where, we're going purely off of what we know of each other. And it was a little bit disappointing not to see that in that game.
Number 2.
Let's be honest, it became a dead rubber game. It became a game where you could see one team had played, had scored, and they started sitting back and managing the game. And you could see another team that had basically given up. Now, I'm going to speak about that giving up point later on, but guys, not all results are created equally. Not all draws are boring. Not all heavy losses are bad games. But in this game, we didn't get excited. We didn't see an ebb and a flow. Sometimes you lose, and you lose because the other team is just better. Yes, we're playing young Africans, a Champions League side that gave Mamelodi Sundowns a tough time. But you'd expect a little bit of excitement, especially for a friendly game that's happening in Bloem. The stadium is full. People have expectations. We watched the Legends game right before, and I was making a point to some friends that the stadium even sounded different. Again, I don't think the result is my problem. I think my problem is that the result happened and we don't have anything to write home about. But the biggest point that I'm going to make today is this one.
Number 1.
When you listen to Chiefs fans and you hear them complain or you hear them speaking, you can tell that there's a deep lying passion there. You can tell that there's a little bit of urgency that they want, man. We need to now get back to winning ways. We need to now get back into being one of the biggest teams in the continent. We need to start playing. But what's interesting for me is I don't see that on the pitch. I think part of my expectations for this game was that the players would understand where they are, would understand the drought, would understand the poor performance that they had last season, would understand that they could be starting to play this season this weekend. They couldn't even qualify for the top 8. So you expect them to come out and have a little bit of power, man, a little bit of urgency, that they want this thing, that they've got an attitude that says we want to prove the fans wrong. We want to we want to do right by the coach. We want to do all of these things for the club. That we understand that we have to show something. And I might be in the wrong formation. I might be playing against a better team. But I'm going to leave that pitch knowing that I gave my all. There's only a few players in that game that gave their all or gave something close to their all. There's only a few players that showed us something. But this can't be the same pattern that we've been seeing for the past few years. It can't be that these players have given up. It was so sad watching the rest of that game where you could see that they'd given up. They were running less. They were completing less passes. They were less awake. It's almost like they were waiting for the game to end. And I, for the next season, want to see that even when things are going wrong, you're giving your all. Even when things are going wrong, you're looking at that packed stadium, Bloem, and you're going to them, guys, we may not have it together right now. We may not be understanding Coach Nebi's things, coaching and all of that right now. But we have a commitment to you to play. And that is a big thing that has been missing from the past few years. So I was very disappointed that it got to a point where their heads were down, and they didn't realize that, yes, this is preseason, but this can be a statement game. This can be a game where you let everybody know that this is what Chiefs is. We're starting this Nabi era differently. And it goes back to the point I made previously, that sometimes it's very hard for players that have been living in that to motivate themselves to get out of that, which worries me going into the season. But it's not all doom and gloom. Let's get into some of the good things that we saw from this game.
Number 5.
The atmosphere. You have to speak about the atmosphere. Bloemfontein came out for Kaizer Chiefs. It's so good to see a packed stadium. You know, when the Legends were playing, that stadium felt like early PSL. It felt like the 2000s PSL. You know, it sounded different. They brought a vibe. There was an energy to it. Yes, later on that energy left. But what I'm hoping is that going into the next season, we see more of that type of thing. More of the stadiums being full. More of it being a good day out. Where even us who are watching at home can see, man, unale something here. And I think this extends past Kaizer Chiefs and it goes towards all of the PSL teams and fans of PSL teams. Let's go out there and create these really nice atmospheres. So I'm going to start there and say that was a very good thing.
Number 4.
These kind of friendlies are very important. I'm very thankful to having Yanga come and play us as Kaizer Chiefs in this friendly. And I think what's very nice about these type of games is that they show you exactly where you are. And the nice thing about knowing where you are is that you know where to go from there. We now know the difference between a Champions League team and us. We now know how those type of teams can punish you. And now we leave this game with a little bit more information to what we have to change and fix. I really do hope Coach Nabi watched this game and realized a whole bunch of things. Realized how fans react. Realized how important that 12th man is, especially for a team like Kaizer Chiefs. Realizing who his players are when the chips are down. I saw him get frustrated at some points, and I think part of that frustration had to have been that, guys, we may be losing, but don't give up on us now. Don't give up on me now, in the words of Coach Rulani. So it's very good for us to measure yourselves against people that are actually good. You know, one day, it's one thing to go out and play versus the under-23s of another team, to play against weakened teams of other teams. But now you get a glimpse into it. And I think one thing we can also take away from this game is that in as badly as Chiefs played, as I've laid out, the goals came from mistakes. The goals came from things that could be easily rectified, and I don't think for long stretches of that game we were outplayed. So the fixing is not going to be that much. But let's go into something else that excited me.
Number 3.
It's the youth. We've long complained about these youngsters. Are they ready when they're coming into the team? If they're going to sit on the bench and become a khatebe and become those guys, are we getting anything from them? What I enjoyed was that Coach Nabi played those young guys. We saw Mdu, we saw Mfundo, we saw Samgelo, we saw Mbutu, young Mbutu at left back. We saw them get game time. We saw them grow and learn, right? They're going to learn a lot of lessons from this game. Abombutu are going to learn a lot of lessons from this here game. But I love that there was a trust given to them. Because it's one thing to lose games with the quote-unquote experienced players. But I said last season that I would love to see the youngsters start. I'd love to see the youngsters come in, get given the game time, and rather we grow them this season and give them experience and game time, so that next season we can see something from it, than for them to be sitting behind people who maybe are not going to do well, but because they're older, we're going to lean on them to hold the season together. So I loved that the youngsters got a chance and we actually got to see them. Now we know the strengths and weaknesses of Usamgelo Zwane. We know the strengths and weaknesses of Umbutu. We know the strengths and weaknesses of Vilakazi. And obviously Shabalala, we've known them before, but it was good to see him go there. We can't have more of these youngsters go by the wayside and rot on the bench. Now, what I'd like to see going forward is that maybe we've seen that some of them are raw. Maybe some of them need to go out on loan. Maybe some of them need to go out and gain some experience before coming back to Chiefs. But now what's important for the club to do is to plan for each of these young boys' future, to make sure we are developing them, whether it's in-house at Kaizer Chiefs at Naturena or they go out. I want to see these players be protected. I want to see these players looked after. I want to see the veteran ness of some of the players that are there come into play so that they can make sure that they mentor these youngsters and they can be the youngsters for the future. So I'm very happy with Nabi playing them and in some cases sticking with them, and especially one in particular.
Number 2.
A lot has been said about his showboating. A lot has been said about Vilakazi putting his knees on the balls and while we're losing and things like that. I don't want to focus on that because I feel like that is a different conversation. I want to have this conversation about this here boy. Vilakazi is what we have needed in terms of an attitude. Vilakazi does not shy away from the spotlight. He does not shy away from the fans. He embraces it, he enjoys it, he loves it. A big difference from teams of old and Chiefs teams now is that these guys are afraid. They're afraid of the fans, they're afraid of the coach, they're afraid of Twitter, they're afraid of that, they're afraid of that, they're afraid of that. And we watch them on the pitch shrink. It's so amazing to see a player come in and say, no, we are losing 4-0. We are losing 1-0. But I need to understand that part of what makes Kaizer Chiefs great is that 12th man. Part of what makes Kaizer Chiefs great is that it's a big platform, if not the biggest platform in South Africa. We watched the Legends game right before that game played. Look at Shavla, man, Ushaful. Look at Spiwe Shabalala. Look at Collins Besuma, David Khatebe. Look at some of those players that played, about DK. Look at how they fed off of the crowd. Look at what it did to them. Look at how they played. Look at how they had an air of arrogance about them. And for me, that is what Chiefs was. There was an arrogance to playing for Kaizer Chiefs. There was an enjoyment, man, of all those eyes. And Vilakazi, for me, is a throwback to that era. He's a throwback to the type of players that we need. Now, it's not just about showboating. It's also about that confidence that you radiate. Patrick Mabedi understood the limelight as much as Jabu Pule. He understood what he needed to be in the game for that team. Yeah, Abo Cyril Nzama, Abo Thabo Moki, all of those players, though different maybe in their showboating styles, different maybe in the jobs that they did. Abo Lengo Masha. They didn't shy away. And what I saw in that boy is a lack of fear that I wish we could get from Kaizer Chiefs. You know, you watch some of those games from last season and you watch experienced players shrink, hide. You watch it get too big for them. But this boy came out and he played. Came out and he realized when it was quiet and the crowd is going away, it's English. And you could hear the crowd, man, start up. It's something that we have to understand, that Chiefs is media. Chiefs is fans. Chiefs is noise. And you have to have players that can give you that. Pointing at DK. Pointing at Jabupule. Pointing at Abu Asen Zweling. Pointing at Abu Sheikhs Kungwani and those type. Pointing at those people that understood their role. What I also loved about what Mfundo did in that game right there. Yes, Ulbegi Litolo. He finished the action. He crossed the ball in. He played a ball in that was dangerous. Yes, he touched the ball and did this. Never lost the ball and played the ball out. And for the 3 times, Mal paid Tolweni, fine. But for the lot of that match, he was running back and getting the ball and collecting because the other midfielders were too afraid to go and get it. Going back and starting the play. Going back and playing it out. That boy is one for the future. Raw. Yes, there's things he has to work on. I agree. But this is a throwback to what we need as Kaizer Chiefs. But let's talk about the biggest thing I took away.
Number 1.
Coach Nabi. In that press conference he gave, in the interview that he gave at the end of that game, where he spoke about Umbutu. I think the one that I loved was when he spoke about Umbutu. And he was asked about this youngster that made a mistake and his head was down. And he said something that was so key to me. He said, I can't leave him. I can't pull him out. I can't kill him while he's young. I can't, if I take him out in that game, he's gone for the season. Who knows what happens to his future? And he kept standing up and speaking to him. You could see him on the touchline speaking to him. And I love that he's aware of all of the things that are happening. He's aware that, man, this is a young boy. He's aware that he's thrusting them into some tough situations. I love that he spoke about how, you know what, guys, we're building. What we should take away from this is that we're building, we're moving forward. And I know sometimes that those might be empty words. And we're going to see over the next few weeks how he builds on that and into the season. But I enjoyed just that little bit of awareness from the coach. I enjoyed that even when we were down, he was standing up and shouting and trying to will the boys on and reminding them and having them play. Now, there's things that he's going to have to rectify. He's going to have to change the attitude of the boys. He's going to have to come out and maybe change some formations, make some tough decisions about players. But I have a good feeling about him as a person. I still stick to what I said previously, where I'm going to give him a curve of 5 games to see how that builds, how that goes. But I liked the signs that he had when he was speaking. I like that he acknowledges, the fans and things like that in his press conferences and when he was speaking, and that he's never had anything like this. So I think there's an awareness of what he's walking into. So I really enjoyed the words spoken by Coach Nabi at the end of the day. Now, words are words. Words are words. We're still going to see the real test of whether he'll be able to back those words up. But we'll see as the season rolls in. Overall, it's a friendly game. I don't want to read too much into it. Yes, I just did a whole segment speaking about it, but honestly speaking, I want to give them a chance. We really have nothing to lose. I just want the team, at the very least next season, to come out and play as if you understand the history of the club. Play as if you understand where the club is right now. Play as if your job depended on it. Play as if you are a fan of the team. There will be losses. There will be games we give up. There will be days where the performances might be poor. There will be days where quality will beat us. There will be days where lucky goal will beat us. But there should not be one game, not one game next season where I can ask whether you've given us your all. That is what I want from this team. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please don't forget to subscribe. Watch the other different videos. I'm back. Live show, Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. Bye, guys.